which I agree with you, but I think that just the fact that they went, I need help and asked for it,
Right.
got put on the list, that was enough to move it.
Yeah. Yeah. At least for a little
So,
while anyway.
well, absolutely. And sometimes a little while is all you need.
Yeah. Well, which gets back to the other discussion about, how humanity made it this far without, professional intervention on a weekly basis for 12 months at a time. you know.
You know what I think too is that I think that crisis intervention is really where we should be putting our energy.
Yeah.
Uh, Cynthia Baldwin. One of the things that she said was that when you can catch people in that hinge moment,
Mm-hmm.
that you would that you had so many more options.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time getting people into weekly therapy, and that's really appropriate for some people. But I find that 3 sessions and you're done experience really happens in those hinge moments.
Yeah.
That you meet, somebody calls and says, we're in crisis, our whole life is blowing up, what do we do? And we put them on a waiting list because we don't have anything for a week or 2 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can see them that day, because I've done at Lassen County, we used to do a lot of crisis work.
Mm-hmm.
I had more good results in those right now, and I'm going to see you every day for the next 4 days because you're suicidal.
Yeah.
Then they're better.
Yep. Yeah. Like long lasting better. You're right.
Like long lasting better. And we don't allow ourselves that kind of flexibility. Oh, we see people weekly.
Right.
What if they need to be seen twice a week? What if they truly are suicidal and you can hospitalize them, or you can trust them every night that they can keep themselves safe overnight?
Mm-hmm.
That you have a plan for what they'll do if they don't feel like they can keep themselves safe, and that you will see them the next day.
Well, I'll tell you what interferes with that chiefly is certainly demand, right? So we've got clients coming out of our ears at Zephyr, and you can't just put somebody in the next day. No appointments available. But also insurance, prior auths. You burn through 4 appointments in a week. You send off that claim, and they go, "What are you doing? Why are you seeing this person that frequently?" Now, technically, it's allowed. You can bill 1 code per day. But even if they don't look at it, you're burning through the prior auth allocation real quick. So we have to be mindful of that. And when you ask for more sessions, and this is through personal experience, you ask for more sessions, and the insurance company says, well, we think that you didn't use them appropriately. We're not going to authorize the next 12. You're stuck. Then somebody has to appeal that. And that's more time. And if you're in private practice, you don't have the time.
Exactly. But one of the things that I know is that when appealed, if you go, well, it was my decision as the therapist to see them daily for that week.
Yeah.
Because it was hospitalize them or see them daily.
Yeah, they tend to relent. Yeah.
They do.
Hospitals are very expensive. Yeah.
They're a bean counter.
Yeah.
And you're a therapist. Now, in terms of therapeutically, I think it's much better to keep them in their home environment.
100%.
And trust them that you believe that they can keep themselves alive.
Yeah. We do this with students in schools when we do the signs of suicide screenings and then the debriefs. Kids who are they could be an ongoing crisis, like their whole life through their lens is just miserable. And if you catch them in that moment where they're like, yeah, I finally marked on the paper that I wanted to kill myself, and I knew that somebody was going to see it, and I knew I was going to have this conversation with you, they're mentally prepared. We're not getting them in a gotcha, and we're not also having their parents put them on the list to come see us, weeks down the road where they're like, I have a belly full of food, and I just got a flirty text from my friend, so my problems are going away now. I don't have to talk to you. Because it's 3:30 on Tuesday when I don't have a crisis, whereas every other hour of the day, every day of the week, I do have a crisis. When we catch them in that moment, like you said, the hinge movement, I like that phrase there, where it's like you could swing one way or another. They're open to the feedback, and boom, if they're not off and running after one half hour, 40-minute conversation in the school setting with somebody they've never even met before, I probably didn't do it right. Like if they just retreat back to their chaos, that's on me. because more often than not, they do walk away going, "Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. My life isn't actually upside down." Like I just rehearsed self-talk to the point that I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's
Well, and those moments, even if they aren't up and running, you may not have done it right in your mind, but in their mind, you've just said, someone listened to me.
Yep, yep. We validated it.
Yeah. And said, do you truly want to kill yourself as opposed to hurt yourself?
Right. Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time educating average people to be able to say the words, do you want to kill yourself?
Yeah, and not and not hurt yourself or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and when you say, do you want to hurt yourself? People who are truly thinking about killing themselves don't think it's going to hurt. They think it's going to stop the hurt.
Yeah, or they say, no, I don't plan on hurting myself. I plan on dying. They won't say that, but in their head, that's what's going on.
That's what they're saying in their head. And I'm like, you have to ask, are you considering killing yourself?
Yep.
And I've had more parents go, oh my God, won't you give them ideas? I said, trust me, they already have the idea.
That is a myth. If you're listening and you're wondering why we're talking like this, it's a complete myth. It's been disproven multiple times over multiple research projects.
And I have never seen anything less than relief.
Yep.
On the person asked, are you thinking about killing yourself? The ones who are not thinking about killing themselves are like, oh no, I'm not thinking about killing myself. The ones that are like, oh, thank God somebody finally asked.
Yeah, or sometimes it's a mixture of disbelief because somebody finally said it. They're like, did that really just come out of your mouth? And you go, yeah. And you just kind of stare them down. Like, I asked you a question. I need an answer. Like, okay, yeah. And then we can move forward.
So those things are so huge.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things about having a therapist who has training, especially suicidality training, is that in a 40-minute session with somebody who has answered affirmatively to the do you want to kill yourself question, is you can move them from I want to kill myself to no, I don't want to die in 40 minutes.
Really quick. Yep. And in fact, you can go to the affirmative, I actually want to live, because you start talking about all the protective factors. Because once it's out, it's out. Now we can deal with it. It's not just rolling around in your head, like we were talking about before.
Well, and then you can talk about how they'd want to do it. And you can do all of that stuff because you started talking about it. And then when they get to the point where they're going, the more I talk about this, the more it sounds like not any.
Yeah.
It sounds really bad. Because one of the things that we often do is try to talk people out of killing themselves.
Yeah, no, that begets resistance.
So much better if you let them talk themselves out of it.
Yeah.
Being willing to talk about, and this is why I think people need to go to therapy with a trained person. Being willing to talk about the really ugly, icky, horrible stuff without freaking out is a huge skill.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one that, unless you had really disgusting little boys as a parent, you don't have, right?
Right.
I mean, I know a whole bunch of parents who don't like to talk about blood or anything else. And I know that if I can talk about anything you bring to me, because I play a great game of one-upsmanship with teenage boys who are trying to shock me. And you can't shock me because there's nothing shocking that human beings do.
Yeah. That's true. And I think that speaks to the validating, non-judgmental aspect of our profession that says there's nothing you're going to say that's going to put me on my heels. You may say something that I've never heard before, but there's an old saying, I learned it from Christian, says, if a human being has done it, it is therefore human nature. You being a human, therefore possess all the same nature as any other human being. Therefore, we're all capable of everything great and terrible that any human has ever done in the span of history.
Absolutely.
Alleviates a lot of judgment. So even if I personally have never heard of this thing or never imagined it, the fact that it just came out of your mouth means it's real. And
you certainly feel it's real.
Yeah, that's right.
Working with a psychotic person is really interesting. I love working with psychosis. Mm-hmm. Which is weird, I know, but it's so interesting because
I think it's weird only because it's so unfamiliar to us, and I think that's probably because you and I were trained in Nevada where we weren't allowed to do it for 20 years.
I did it in California as an intern.
Right. But even then, it's like there aren't that many people who go there because it's so bizarre as a presentation. It doesn't make any sense because it's not sensical. So people just kind of tend to avoid it. It's easier to
Why we
treat.
call it psychosis. My favorite thing that people say to psychotic people is, trust me, it's not real.
Oh my God.
And you
Worst
know
thing
who
you can
says
do.
things like that? Psychiatrists say things like that.
Yeah.
Psychologists say things like that. My best work with people has been to say, this is clearly very real to you.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it, but that doesn't mean it's not real.
Yep.
It just means that I don't see it.
Yeah.
So let's start there. One of the things I know about psychosis is that often it's just like a tuning thing. You know, you're old enough to remember tuning your radio, right?
Yeah.
If you get it in the right spot, you're there. So when I start talking about tuning and they're like, yes, that's it. It's like I can hear something over here.
Yeah.
Like,
Tuned differently.
So, you know, then it becomes a real thing. It's like sometimes medication helps that. Sometimes it doesn't. Paranoid people who are sure people are following them. You know, they are looking at me at my house and then they're going to follow me to the next place. I like to do things like put a note on your door that says where you're going because we don't want to have any accidents on the way.
Yeah. Lean into it. Lean into it, not away from it.
They get better.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Because I'm not telling them it's not happening. I'm saying, let's just make this safer.
Yeah. I would love to have an entire discussion about whether or not people in psychosis have a clearer understanding of the real world or a less clear understanding of the real world. Because I think there's a debate that could be had there. But
I think
I'm running out
the
of time.
answer is yes.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too.
I think that it is less clear and more clear at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I don't want to get into it now because I'm running out of time, and I have to. Interestingly, I have another podcast coming up in 18 minutes. But I think there's a lot of fertile ground to be tilled there, and it would alleviate a lot of judgment and possibly provide some insights. Conspiracy theorists, you know, who live in that realm of like, yeah, all this stuff that you're not hearing in the mainstream media. It's like, I'm not going to say it's not happening. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not even possible because I don't know. But for now, I'm going to live over here. And I think there's merit.
Like I choose to believe in the best things about people, not the worst.
Right. Right.
So perhaps they're trying to pull this. Perhaps the moon landing was a big joke on all of us.
Maybe.
Boy, that's impressive.
Yeah, sure is.
No?
A lot of moving parts there.
A lot of moving parts. I'm impressed. If they actually did it, I'm very impressed. If they made it to the moon, I'm still very impressed. So I'm going to be impressed about it, regardless of what it is. Does it impact my day to day? Not even slightly.
Right. Well, I appreciate your time, and I always
did what you wanted to do. I'd be happy to do this again if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll have to set this up for sure. I want to talk about the psychotic stuff, but in the meantime, what's if you could impart some level of wisdom on the audience, some knowledge, some one major takeaway that has to do with our field, the profession, the experience of therapy, what would you say?
I'm not going to, well, what I would say is that I don't think it ever hurts anybody to talk to a professional person about their life.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is just about how, this is my vision of how the world should work. I always make the most positive attribution in every situation with another person that I can. Because it doesn't help me any to make a negative attribution.
It's true.
And it definitely doesn't help my relationships.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you. Thank you for all that you've done and continue to do. And thanks for making time for this.
Thanks for helping my brain turn on again. Whee!
Yeah, wind you up and you just go. It's awesome.
I talk to people very often anymore.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. So, that being said, I'm going to go empty my bladder before the next engagement. And
Enjoy.
on behalf of the Noggin Notes family and the Zephyr Wellness family, we wish you all